Okay. Trying. Okay. Hopefully that stays. I hope. Okay. Hello. How's it going? Trying to make sure that the Wi-Fi doesn't cut out this time. So hopefully, cross your fingers, doesn't. Okay. The other problem is my screen is definitely not big enough for this. Okay. All right. Time for a good rant. Like most of my videos. Okay. I got some time before. We're playing Prince tonight, which would be fun. So, yeah. Like Prince music. Like we're doing Kiss and Purple Rain's the last piece, so that'll be fun. And I'm just playing vibes, so that'll be fun, I guess, yeah. Okay, so yeah, I've been doing a lot on Instagram lately, and a lot of the comments and questions are like pretty involved, so it takes like a longer video, so I can't just do a 30-second or minute-long video on Instagram. So that's kind of why I've been doing these live streams, so that way if people watch them, they can watch them directly, and then I get to download them from Facebook and just put them on YouTube. So that's the reason I've been doing these live streams so frequently, because it's like hitting 3 birds with 1 stone. So, okay. So the question that was asked was like practice tips for Porgy and Bess, but that kind of got me thinking about just a lot of excerpts, because I practice all of these excerpts about the same. I mean, of course you got to do like accuracy things, so I would always recommend doing slow practice, of course. Like everybody knows, do some slow practice, boom. And what I mean by slow is like obnoxiously slow, not just the tempo, but also the speed of strokes and the motions, that kind of thing. Let's see, hey Josh, aloha, and Brandon, and everybody else. Okay, sweet. So when I mean slow, I mean like super slow, like everything slow. So like that slow. And I like doing that because if you're doing it correctly, you can feel if you're doing anything, like if you're hesitating to a note. Like let's say if you have to do a jump, like if you have to do that jump, if you're hesitating getting to the B natural, you'll notice that if you're playing it slow enough. Or that kind of thing. Or if you're doing, like if you hesitate before you get there, then you can like adjust as you practice it slow. So that's kind of thing. So I love doing that. Or even like even that slow. I know Vadim Karpanos from Chicago Symphony practices most of his excerpts at the beginning at 40 BPM. So if you could do that with everything, you should be able to do it at tempo. Another cool thing I like doing with that, if you want to like try it, is to do it at, let's say Porgy and Bess is, let's say you play it at 128 BPM. If you cut it into thirds, like the tempo itself, so if you divide it by 3, you'd get like, what is that, 40, like 42. So you start at 42, and then bump it up to 84, and then bump it up to 128, or something like that. So if you practice it in those thirds, it kind of speeds up the process instead of trying to do like 40, then 42, then 44, then doing that kind of thing. So if you need to speed the process along, I like doing that in the thirds of the tempo. So I would do 42, whatever that is, and then speeding it up to 84, something like that, then the top tempo. So it kind of prepares you to, get to the top tempo pretty quickly. So that's one thing I like doing. Slow practice, speeding it up as you go along, or doing those increments of thirds to the top tempo. So I love doing that. As far as accuracy with each individual hand, I know I put a video up a while ago on YouTube of Schumann 3 and practicing one hand at a time, like either with the other hand just on your side or air playing is really helpful. So if you do that, or I do everything by just hand to hand on this excerpt, but I know some people do so they have that with the doubles. So if you do that, or the left hand, that kind of thing. So yeah. And then it's really good if you could do it without the other hand being present, which I'm pretty bad at. Something like that, So if you could do it without the hand even being there, that's really, really good. I obviously can't. And then, of course, if you can just airplay it completely and hear it in your mind's ear, that's another great way to know that you actually know it without actually hitting any of the notes. And it also helps you with the choreography, especially if you can't airplay a certain part. That probably means you don't necessarily know it as well, because your body kind of wants to have that motion connect. And if you can do it without having any of the connections of the notes, then it probably means you can do it, pretty well. So if you could just airplay it, pretty accurately without feeling like you're not really, if you feel like you're comfortable with that, that probably is a good idea as well. Let's see. Specifically with Porgy, I can't really think of, other than slow practice and doing those things. The other thing you could do, actually Eric Milstein told me to do this, playing everything super soft. I know I also showed that in the Schumann 3. It kind of forces you to mellow out, and also it makes you move a little faster, because especially that kind of thing. So it kind of challenges you in a different way, and I think mostly it challenges you more in the fluidity of your motion and also in the speed of your motion, especially for people who do the alternating strokes for Porgy and Bess. That's really helpful. Okay. Another cool thing you could do, I wonder if my metronome has any battery left. Let's see. If it does, that'd be really cool. If you practice this with the met set to triplets, I'll show you what I mean. Let's see. Who told me to do this? Tom Freer's classes usually, or Tom Freer's students usually do this. And I think probably Alan Abel probably inspired this as well. If you set the metronome to a subdivision of triplets and turn it to a point where the triplets sound like sixteenths at 128 or 126, whatever you do Porgy and Bess at, then you end up getting while doing So it kind of gives you a different feel with the tempo. And I think, yeah, my metronome's out of battery, but I'll see if I can do click, 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 click. that kind of thing. So if you turn the metronome to do triplet subdivisions as if they were 16th, that's really cool. And I'm pretty sure there's one of my Instagram videos does that. So that's also a good thing mentally, specifically. Also, it trains your ear to really pay attention to just the 16th pattern and not latch on to the accents that are happening every 3/16ths. So it's a little mind game also, which I kind of like. I like mind games, especially on metronomes, where it forces you to think a certain way that's not being played on the metronome. So like if you're trying to play 16th notes, and like I said, if you have it on a triplet subdivision, so it's beating every 3/16ths, it forces you to really lock in that quarter note pulse instead of going da 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 da. So that's another cool thing you could do. As far as phrasing goes, if you're playing it slow enough, you should really exaggerate all the phrases that you want. And I wouldn't be afraid of doing like an over-exaggerated version, because sometimes you won't be able to, you think you're doing the phrasing, but you're actually not doing it as much as you could be. So like, especially with the accent, so really exaggerate it as much as you can. And if you do it slow enough, so you want to make sure you implement all of those phrases as you're going along and not just like practicing, you know. So you want to make sure you're doing exactly what you want, even if it's at a slow tempo or at a practice tempo. Just make sure you're always doing the phrases that you want. Or if you're doing like, have some character, you know, that kind of thing. So that kind of freedom comes from, you know, repetition and knowing the piece really well, and knowing it to a point where you can just like start messing with anything you find. So like, I don't know, what's a good example? Like well, that part, if you want to crescendo that or diminuendo it, like take some liberties, and within reason, of course, but take some liberties with what you want. I love crescendoing into that. So yeah, I like crescendoing or diminuendoing depending on where the phrase is going. So yeah, I highly recommend doing that. Let's see. So we got accuracy, phrasing, playing slow, playing soft, having metronome tricks against what you're doing. Again, you're kind of clarifying the metronome thing. If you're doing something in duple meter, set the metronome to a triple subdivision to kind of offset it. So like if you have fives on your phone or on your metronome, that's a really cool thing if you can like set it to the tempo that it would be at. So as long as the fives sound like the 16ths of the tempo you want. So it'll be like, if it's 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4. So that's where the metronome will be, but you're playing in 4. So, and actually, if you want to mess with your brain even more, start accenting every accent of the 5. So, like that's really weird. If you could do that, then you really know the piece. But that's like extra credit, I guess. So you don't have to do that. Yeah, Porgy and Bess is really straight ahead. It's like, you know, dia, you know, it's pretty simple. Once you know the notes and once you get the motion, then you're pretty good. Speaking of motions, I would highly recommend just doing like doing the motions that cause you the most trouble. Like that jump, you should be able to do it with your eyes closed. Like you should do all of the motions that you find, especially the weird ones. So this is the same as so breaking it up into the choreography, not just the notes, but just the choreography patterns that you find is really helpful as well. Because once you get there, you want to be able to just do it instead of like so. And then also another cool thing you could do with choreography is just practicing the arm motion that takes you there. So not necessarily using the wrist, but just doing the arm motion that takes you there. I need to use my wrist for that. So yeah, again, arm motion that takes you there, not necessarily using the wrist, but just knowing where the arm is supposed to go. That's another cool thing you could do with Schumann 3. I know I did that. Let's see. So that part. So just practicing the arm motions is really helpful. Okay, arm motions. That's for choreography. So it's once you figure out the layout of not only the piece itself or the excerpt itself, but the layout of the instrument itself, then it's really easy to just like use your instincts on where things are. So what I mean by that is if you like. Case in point, this is really important though. One of the reasons you have to do scales every day, and like scales of any sort, so major, minor, harmonic, that kind of thing. If you know exactly what let's see, what's a good example? So if you do B major, so what I can't remember what Alexander Nevsky I think is the excerpt. If you know how to do a B major scale, then doing is super easy. Like that's just a scale. It's not necessarily the excerpt, but that's the scale. So if you know how to do it, if you can do that, then the Alexander Nevsky excerpt is super easy. And then, so yeah, so practice your scales all the time. 2 octaves up and down, do some George Hamilton Green exercises, or I have a bunch of exercises on the Instagram account. I know I have the chromatic scale into a major. That's a nice quick one to do that kind of rattles off. And doing it with both hands, that kind of thing. Double stops comes in handy for that kind of thing. Okay, I'll slow down. Okay, so yeah, so scales. Got to do scales all the time. So that way you get to learn the layout of the instrument, and when you get a piece that, if you have to learn it really quick, you'll know exactly where all the notes are and how to move towards a note you need. So another cool thing you could do is if you're doing scales, you could do a scale in different octaves. And what I mean by that is you do, like, let's say you're playing C major, you do C, and then another note, the next note in a different octave. Then the next note in a different octave, next note, then. So you're doing a C major scale in different parts of the instrument. That kind of thing. So that's another extra credit thing. Yeah. Okay. Enough about scales. Going on to, let's say, Appalachian Spring. Okay. Double stops. Double stops were really weird for me, and there are a couple things you could do to, you can try to make them a little bit easier to do. Usually, for me personally, it's easier for me to get a perfect double stop if I'm focusing on one hand or the other. So one way you can do that is, what I mean by that, you're kind of following either your right hand or you're following the left hand. So, let's see. Hi, Sarah. Okay, let's see. So you can do, one thing you could do, because each mallet has to move exactly the same speed, so I usually do that exercise. That kind of thing. And then you do the opposite hand. And one of those hands will hopefully be more easy to follow than the other. So, yeah, that's a little more tricky. And if you want to work on double stops aside from that, you can do the scale exercises in double stops, either in octaves, or there's a crazy one that I do where you do the chromatic scale, except you do that kind of thing, and then you keep repeating it, but as you repeat it, you add another, like a minor second to the top note. So instead of C, C sharp, the next one will be C, D natural. Then when you repeat it again, it will be C, E flat. So I'll show you a little bit. So the first one, the next one, next one, so it gets you moving a little bit and also more automatic. Yeah. So you do that until you get to the octave. And that's a very a very twitchy wrist is what I call it. So that always helps my double stops. Once you can do, then you can just kick it. No way, stone. That's Oh, wait. Someone said, wait, what? Let's see. Okay, let's see. I'm trying to get all the comments in. Okay. That's all just added. All right, and we're back. Okay. Okay. So yeah, that's double stops. There you go. So that helps with Appalachian Spring, Schumann 3, and I can't think of any others that have a bunch of double stops. Oh, okay. Herianos is a little weird. I do it kind of weird, but to just bring it pretty simple, when you do Herianos, of course you want, right? So that means the triplet rough has to be super light, but also crescendo to the E flat. So. And one of the things I always hear, and probably a lot of people hear as well, is like that, like a very open, and it kind of sounds like the B flat is in part like. So I like separating them just enough. So you have da dee, da ja, da java da 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 java da da, so that kind of thing. Of course, the flams aren't going to be like, it has to be like brata brata brata. So it's still a grace note 2. So don't make them go like. They should be balanced as far as dynamic wise, a little bit better. Okay, so like, and I know a lot of people like doing like just with one hand just to keep it, and that works really well if you want to do it that way. But I know some people like the style of instead of that. All right. Okay, so go with what you want to hear more than. Yeah, go with what you want to hear more than. It's a paradox. It might be easier to do that, but if you want to hear, do that. Okay, so go with what you want to hear, not just what's easy. That. That's another reason why I play Porgy and Bess hand to hand, because I like hearing. I don't like hearing. Like I can do it, but I don't like hearing. I like hearing that instead of that. So go with what you want to hear, not just what's easy. Yeah, that's straightforward. What's a really? I'm trying to think of a hard, like a crazy hard one. That's just flicking. That's another excerpt in Porgy and Bess, the opera. So that's just flicking. Oh, with Herianos, to get the triple, it's a little weird. You're gonna be like doing an upstroke, like, and then full stroke there. So like upstrokes for the triple, and then full. And then if you're doing it the way I do it, I stick right. So, and that'll be a downstroke, up, full, down, ups, full. So, So then it's full, 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 full. That kind of thing. So that really makes it a little easier to get to sound a little less and give you that crescendo. So practice your upstrokes. Yeah, all strokes still apply on the instrument. This is just, every stroke still applies with every instrument you play. So I would recommend, if you want, and this is something I did a lot, doing full strokes, and doing a scale, then upstrokes, and then downstrokes. Again, when you're doing downstrokes, don't pinch in the front or else you get that. So don't pinch in the front. Or in your fulcrum. That's what I mean by the front. Cool? And then taps. That kind of. Cool? Yeah, so all strokes still apply with any instrument you play. Another good thing that's good for is because you get to hear how your strokes are affecting the instrument. So if you hear like, that means your opposite hand is not playing at the same volume. Conversely, if you hear they're playing at the same volume, but they're not the same color, so you want to make sure that the motion is exactly the same. And if the motion is exactly the same, but you hear, that means they're not playing in the same spot. So you want to play each note with every stroke type until they all sound the same. And it takes a while, so you got to be really patient with it. So go through, let's just say go through C major or C chromatic scale and do every single kind of stroke you can on every note. And I would even dare you to start from like the lowest note until you get to the highest one. Okay? All right. Yeah, and again, that's just getting you to know how your motions and how your strokes are affecting the instrument, and that really comes in handy when you have to do something weird, like if you need to play like up and light, you gotta make sure you can do that, okay? Especially when you get to you gotta be able to do that. So okay, cool. So that's just being able to control your stroke types on the instrument. Let's see. And I think that's really probably one of the more important things to remember, because you don't want to have like, okay, I'm playing Porgy and Bess. Like, that's all really down instead of full. So you want to have full control of the sounds that you make. That's really important, especially on, well, it's important for every instrument, but on xylophone, on ringing instruments is really important. And instruments with a melodic line. Well, they all can have a melodic line, but you know what I mean, with pitches, actual pitches. Okay? Let's see, what's another good one? That's Petrushka. Anybody have any questions? So I talked about Porgy and Bess, for everybody who's new. I talked about Porgy and Bess as far as accuracy, practicing slow, And slow as in everything slow, not just the tempo, but the motion itself, so you know how you're moving towards every note that you need. Stroke types and sounds that you're creating through the stroke types on every note on the instrument. Getting from one note to the next, using arm motions, not just wrist, but knowing where the arms are going to take your wrist there. And metronome tricks you can use. So if you're doing something in a duple meter, setting the metronome to a triple subdivision is really good to get your brain working a little harder and paying attention to where the beat actually is instead of where the metronome's clicking. I know that's a Tom Freer / Alan Abel thing that they do and that they teach their students. I heard it from Tom Freer, so I'm assuming it's an Alan Abel thing because, you know, Alan Abel's king. Let's see. Double stops, practicing hands separate because the motion in both hands has to be exactly the same. So if one's slower, that means they won't, or if one's faster, that means they won't hit at the same time. So you want to make sure. And that also helps because if you find that playing with one hand first or the other hand first is a little easier, then you can trick your brain to follow that particular hand. So another way you could try doing that is playing double stops with one hand softer than the other. So today, for me, I think my left hand's a little easier to follow. So you can, you know, that's another way to like make it a little easier so you're not trying to go like both, you know, just like right, or left. Yeah, I think my left hand's better today. So, and again, stroke types to help either phrasing or color choices in the excerpts. So like exotic birds, you want more of an upstroke to sound like a bird. It wouldn't sound right if you had a downstroke. And it also might not sound as good if you have full strokes. It's just a little too loud. So if you have just a lighter touch, okay? So again, it's arm motion, that kind of thing. Okay. Doing scales all the time so you know exactly where the choreography of the instrument is at all times. Again, the Alexander Nevsky, it's just a B major scale, starting on E flat or D sharp. Cool? Yeah. That's like your crash course in xylophone stuff. And that's basically how I practice them. I just play scales all the time just so I can get familiar with the choreography, so I know exactly where my arms need to be to get to whatever note I need. Okay? And then I do, again, scales. Doing full stroke or down. And making sure the sound is the same. Upstroke. That's kind of hard at that tempo. Taps. That kind of thing. And then double stops. That crazy exercise again, the chromatic. That kind of thing. So that also kind of kills two birds with one stone. Because you're getting to know the choreography while working on double stops. So you can also do it C sharp. Okay? Arpeggios, duh. That kind of thing. I think everybody does. I personally stop in between. I know some people go, but I like being able to like stop, adjust, go, stop, adjust, go, and then put them together after I get comfortable. So yeah. Oh, if you're thinking about doing, you could also do all the scales with one hand. Again, it's just getting the choreography of just one arm. You never know if you have to do something really weird where you have to, like something like that. You want to be able to do that. You know, that kind of thing. Again, extra credit if you want to do that. Oh, sight reading. I know I posted a blog about that, but sight reading on mallets, again, I highly recommend doing, like I keep saying it, but scales. If you know where things are on the instrument, then once you're reading it, then it's really easy to go like, oh, that's an F sharp. Yeah, you kind of know where things are, so you don't have to go like F sharp, G sharp, B sharp, you know, whatever, B flat. Okay, so I highly recommend like just doing all the scales, and also practicing blindfolded is another good exercise. If you want to be able to do like a C major, because once you practice it enough, you should know what the choreography will be, so you don't really need to rely on your eyes to do that. And I do practice excerpts blindfolded, just so I practice it blindfolded so I can feel where things. So I practice it blindfolded, and then once you look, then it's really easy. Cool. Let's see. Yeah, highly recommend practicing blindfold. It's really, it kind of puts you in a different headspace, and it gives you a different viewpoint of the instrument itself. So you're hearing more, you're feeling more than you are like trusting your eyes. Okay. And I would recommend doing that with the scales as well. And it will feel different. Everything feels a lot smaller when you have your eyes closed. At least for me. Maybe some other people it feels bigger, but for me, when I have my eyes closed, it feels a lot more contained. So I have to move less than I think. Other people have to move more, or it doesn't affect them, which would be kind of cool. Okay. I think my rant's over. Unless anybody has a question, I'm just going to wrap this up. Okay. Yeah. We just did that. That's always fun. Yeah, again, go for phrases, go for color, and then, of course accuracy, but, more like character kind of things. If your practice is character driven, it kind of makes things a lot easier to work on, because if you're like, I want to play, let's see, I have a question. Nick! Hi, Nick. Yeah, so go for phrases. If you're going for character and phrases, that kind of informs your practice. So if you know you need to play loud, then, or if you know you need to play with an exciting character, that informs the color, that informs the dynamic, that informs the speed, and then, you study the score, or you study the music, as in the audio of it, or the MP3, and that informs what you're supposed to be doing. Don't just go, I have to learn the notes. Go for characters. Character is the most important, and that informs the practice, and that informs what you need. And if you find that you can't play fast enough, or then your practice is informed by that. You got to learn how to play faster, that kind of thing. All right, question is, how's your practicing changed from school to on the job? I presume. Okay, how's your practicing changed from school to on the job? I presume there's a little different priority. There might be a different priority. But also, I'd imagine there's a bit more freedom to choose your approach and the commitment. Yes. I will say that my practice, also peace and harmony. I will say that my practice changed leading up to the job, and then it stayed the same from there on to after the job. So, and actually, there's a video of Stephen White from the Met, which I love Stephen. I think we both had the same realization leading up to when we won our jobs. So I practice all stroke types because all stroke types apply to every single instrument. So if you can do a full stroke perfectly, then your full stroke will be adaptive to any instrument you play. So a full stroke here will be essentially different from a full stroke on a snare drum because of the rebound, but as long as the motion and the concept is the same between all stroke types, then when you apply it to a different instrument, then it really works out. So I play a lot of stick control warm-up as far as doing all full strokes, downstrokes, taps, and ups, and combinations of those. So let's say if I was doing, I would do 6 fulls, 2 downs, 6 taps, 2 ups, full, 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 down, down, tap, 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 up. And I just repeat that. And then, what else did I do? 8 on a hand. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 16th note starting with the other hand, and then 8 on the hand, then 4 sets of 16ths. So I guess to put it into simple terms, I started working more on my motions of my hands and my arms, getting them consistent and reliable and very, very instinctual. So I know that if I need a full stroke, I just do it. I don't have to think about it. So getting my stroke patterns and my motions as instinctive as possible, and color choices as instinctual as possible. So if I want to hear a certain color, I know how to move to get it. So strokes and motion, and then working on time. So I do a lot of 16th patterns, so 16th notes, and then 8th 2/16ths or 2/16th 8th, like all the normal things you would see, like triplets, 5s, quintuplets, and 8th note, and then 3 triplet 16ths, so da 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 da, or the inverse of that, paradiddles, and anything else that would be common to the rep. So getting those rhythms perfect and reliable, and let's see, what was the next thing I did? So strokes, motion, time and rhythm, integrity, sound quality choices, and I guess those 4 things that I always worked on every day. And it hasn't changed since. Once I started only focusing on those things and then just going for phrasing after that, as far as the pieces are concerned, then it was really easy to like apply it to every instrument and every piece that I had. Because then all I had to focus on was just phrasing. I didn't have to focus on, okay, let me make sure my 16ths are perfect. No, I practice that every morning. Like my 16ths will be perfect as long as I just stay within the motion that I practice. Or like, let's see. What is that? So, like, that'll be fine if I ever have to play that. Or, that's quarters. So, quarter, 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 full strokes. Cool? So, yeah. Yeah, cool. Yeah. So yeah, the stroke types always do that. Time always do that. And then I could just worry about color and phrasing after that. So I don't have to necessarily like only focus on time or only focus on color or only focus on like some an individual aspect of the excerpt. I've already worked on that away from the excerpt. Yeah. See, I guess another cool thing that I realize is that there shouldn't be any separation of the excerpt and what you normally practice. Like, if you're always practicing your time, then you don't have to worry about it when you get to the excerpt. You shouldn't be worrying about, okay, let me focus on my time now. Like, you'll know if you're rushing or you'll know if you're dragging. You don't have to, like, necessarily focus on it by itself. Hey, Ash! A little sister. Again, if you have to, I mean, there are certain things where you will have to work, like, of course, you will have to work on the time a little bit, maybe. But if you're already focusing on it daily, then you don't have to worry about it as much. Again, if you're working on your color daily, then you don't have to worry about it as much. Like, you always want to focus on the fundamentals more than the actual, like, excerpt, So, because if the fundamentals are solid, then you don't have to worry about it as much. So I worked on a bunch of fundamentals, and I just work on fundamentals every day. Again, scales, gotta do scales. If you can do scales, you can rip off scales like that, then it'll be easy when you have to play the mallet part. After that, it's just learning the choreography of the excerpt itself. Yeah. I guess being on the job, it's not as easy to practice because I'm more tired these days because I'm doing a lot. Especially being in a different country, it's a lot of things I'm getting used to and have to like figure out. But yeah, time commitment. I mean, you should be able if you're at least doing the fundamentals every day, like 20 minutes or 10 minutes of something, like 10 minutes of time, as often as possible. Then when you get to the excerpt, you don't have to stress out about it as much because you're already working on time. So you just have to learn the choreography of whatever the pieces are. So work on the vocabulary. Yes, work on the vocabulary and integrate new words into the, yeah. Work on vocabulary and you're always incorporating and integrating new words into the everyday vocabulary. A la Nick Honeycutt. Yeah. Because that's all you're really doing. You're just getting the vocabulary really set, and then you can say anything you want. I think who said that? Victor Wooten said that in one of his... Victor Wooten's great. Yeah. You just want to practice until you feel free on the instrument. Once you feel free on the instrument, then it's easy to like do anything you want. Okay. That's a rant for you. Yeah, so that's how I practice a lot of the, like all the excerpts, especially on Xylophone. You want to make sure the sounds that you're making are good sounds and appropriate sounds for what you need. You don't want to have like it's too light. You get the idea. Okay. Yeah, anybody else have a question? If not, I'm going to finish up. Because I'm hungry. I highly recommend just like, making some stuff up or like playing a song that that kind of thing, or I love that kind of thing, or Sound of Music, I think. Yeah, Sound of Music. So playing simple tunes on the instrument, that's not simple. That's always fun. It's something you could do to like get you away from doing this all the time. Okay. Of course, playing excerpts with the recording. Of course, that's very helpful. Yeah, I will like you. Oh, yeah, I love teaching. Teaching is a lot of fun. It's really rewarding too. I love teaching. I'm a really hyper teacher. Like I get really excited when somebody does something correctly or if they find something in their playing. Yeah. Oh, I also like practicing scales while emulating something. So like playing a scale like a flute would play a scale, or playing scales like a tuba. So playing really fat and like warm. So you get that'd be a tuba sound for, I guess. Or playing like a flute. Or a piccolo. Like getting that kind of thing. So I like doing that a lot. Yeah. Now I'm just thinking of things. So, all right. Unless anybody has, I think that was all the questions. I think I got them all. Right? Pretty sure. But yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. Yeah, that was Nick's. Yeah. Cool. I think that's everything. Pretty sure. Cool. All right. That's Xylo Excerpt Rant. I forget who asked the question, but I'll be sure to post this on Instagram for that person, because I know they were asking about Porgy and Bess specifically. And then I think the next one will be tambourine. And depending on how much time I have, I might do that real quick. So yeah, I'm going to finish this one, and then I'll definitely come back later for tambourine. That'll be the next one, because I love tambourine. All right, thanks for watching, everybody. See you later.